What's up, movie nerds and basketball geeks? Welcome back to Movie Ball. It's been a while since I've recorded a movie review here on this channel. It's been a long time, and I want to do one. I saw a movie, so here we are. The latest DC Extended Universe film has hit the big screen, and I honestly wasn't all that excited because aside from Shazam and Joker not being in the DCEU, I haven't seen a DC Extended Universe film since Justice League in 2017. I haven't gotten around to watching Aquaman yet because I just figured I'd get around to it eventually, and I haven't, and I feel like that's mainly because of DC Cinematic Universe and overall recent track record being very hit or miss. Not to compare them to Marvel, but that's exactly what I'm doing and exactly what's playing out in front of you. When an MCU flick comes out, even if I have very little interest in it, or if their recent films have been very hit or miss for me, or just not, I wasn't like all about them, I'll still 95% guarantee that I'm going to see an MCU movie in theaters because of how consistently awesome of a job they've done with movies like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and their other standalone films that have really sparked my interest. I loved Man of Steel. I really did. It was honestly one of my favorite movies of 2013. I thought it was really great and spectacular, but then it was another 3 years before another addition to the DCEU, which we got two giant misfires in with Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad. So then you put those into effect, and then you take into account that the next year, in 2017, you get Justice League and Wonder Woman, both of which I thought were pretty bland overall. So when you put out 4 disappointing movies in a row for me, I'm gonna give a lot less of a shit. And although I did enjoy Shazam a decent amount, and Joker was great, but that wasn't in the DC shared universe, I said, you know what, fuck it. They did 2 decent projects in a row, I'll see Birds of Prey. But I was very hesitant though at the same time because Birds of Prey looked pretty bad to me. It looked just like Suicide Squad, and which is weird because let's not forget how great Suicide Squad looked before it actually came out. But then it came out and it was like, oh my god, Jesus Christ, get that shit away from me. And just having that poor taste of similar tones and all of that of Suicide Squad in my mouth, I was just like, if that's what Birds of Prey is looking like and going for, I don't really want anything to do with that. But then the reviews dropped and they were actually pretty spectacular all around the board. But I kept my expectations to a minimum still because at the same time, Wonder Woman was praised universally by critics and fans, and I still felt that to be pretty underwhelming. Birds of Prey follows Harley Quinn, basically just her, as she wanders through Gotham after breaking up with the Joker and getting involved in some dangerous situations along the way. Birds of Prey is quite a bit of fun. It's hard to not vibe with its overexcited sense of mania and appreciate that it's almost at all times trying to do the most to entertain you, whether that's with comedy, violence, action, or just its colorful backdrops and production design. Birds of Prey is working hard to make you smile. And although Birds of Prey isn't exactly breaking any new ground or all that original, it keeps you serviced as a paying customer for what we want out of a Harley Quinn film, which is exactly what I just said. Comedy, violence, action, and this overall hyper and manic energy that's planted throughout its roots. The film does an excellent job at showing you who Harley Quinn is, how her mind often wanders and gets to these wacky situations and scenarios in her head, and it just displays the kind of charming insanity that is associated with the character, which in all honesty probably wouldn't be nearly as good if it wasn't brought perfectly to life by Margot Robbie. One of the very few positives of Suicide Squad was the character of Harley Quinn and how she had this very delightful and gonzo personality, and it's just been portrayed masterfully at this point by Margot Robbie. It's not something anyone could easily make us fall in love with, yet Margot Robbie does it because she's a 2-time Oscar nominee at this point. She brings her world-class talent to the screen, to the character. She gives us that dynamic range that she has, and she's also super fucking hot, so that probably helps in any character that she plays. And that was just in Suicide Squad. Here in Birds of Prey is no exception either. She turns it up to another level, and she anchors the film completely, and again, she's super fucking hot. Like, even in clown makeup and shit. It's kind of even hotter. And the rest of the Birds of Prey, although not in the film as prominently as they might have advertised, are also really solid here. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character doesn't even really show up until like the 3rd act really, yet because it's Mary Elizabeth Winstead, because she's hot, because she's changed her hair from green to blue to green to every other week and a half, and because I've had a crush on her since then, and because she's a very good and solid actress, she's able to make this character very engaging. However, I mean, she's not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a very Mary Elizabeth Winstead type of role. I mean, it's a reserved badass who can kick some ass, who's hot, who's snarky, kind of keeps to herself. I mean, that's just like every Mary Elizabeth Winstead role I could even think of right now. And it's not a problem because she plays the role great. It's fine, she does a good job. So I don't really know why I'm pointing it out if I don't think it's a problem, but I guess it's just something I noticed. And then Journey Smollett-Bell, the last kind of bird of prey character in this film, if you will, is also really good and really hot. Jesus! Next time I see a trio of hot girls walking around, I'm just going to call them the birds of prey. But at this point, these characters and these women all have really good chemistry and work well together. But perhaps the performance that steals the show, aside from Margot Robbie's on-screen heroics, is Ewan McGregor as Black Mask. I can't think of another comic book villain other than Thanos in the past 5 or 6 years, or maybe even more, also not including the Joker, that I've liked this much. But Ewan McGregor is just eating up the screen as this very flamboyant and probably gay psychopath lunatic who is just so cool and chill, but then out of nowhere he can just snap and go absolutely ballistic, and it's so much fun to watch him give this very wacky and memorable performance, and it's even more awesome that he's actually this really cool villain, and to add on top of that, he's the first gay comic book villain, maybe first gay character in a comic book film that I can even think of, and I just think that's really awesome to finally have that, and they didn't even fuck it up because he's a really dope villain also, so it just adds to that experience. I mean, don't quote me that he's the first gay or that he's even gay as a character. It just seems that they very heavily implied it. I didn't do my research, like I didn't look to see if the director was like, yes, no, he is gay, this is what we wanted or what they envisioned, but it seems pretty implied, so I'm just going to roll with that because it adds a cool touch to the story. But I think that it's because of these great performances and because of these characters and chemistry, and because there was just so much overall effort put into this film that it's so much more enjoyable than it should have been. Because when you boil it down to its core elements, Birds of Prey is really just a pretty basic plotline with some storytelling issues and kind of repetitive action sequences. Don't get me wrong, there's a heap of really cool action scenes and fights and well choreographed explosions and shit like that, but at the same time, there's a couple of moments where I saw Harley Quinn fight someone and it just felt very repetitive, and it felt like something that I had seen play out 2 or 3 times already. So then because of that, and because it doesn't necessarily wow you with its narrative or storytelling, that kind of holds the movie back a little bit. But on the flip side of all of that, because there's so much flair on display in this project, and because there was so much dedication put into it, it makes the film that much better. That's why Birds of Prey is a consistently fun, often humorous, and largely colorful addition to the DCEU lineup. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's certainly enjoyable and one that I wouldn't mind revisiting, and makes me very curious about the future of these characters in the director's next flick. I'm going to give Birds of Prey a B. Yeah, I just changed my grading system out of nowhere. Didn't say anything about it, just hit you with a new rating just like that, because I've always wanted to do the A+ to F scale, but I didn't, just because I felt that I didn't want to be mimicking or copying some of these other YouTube reviewers and critics like Chris Stuckman or The Flick Pick or whoever does those A+ to F scales. I've always preferred it that way. It always made more sense to me when rating a film for my own personal taste, what belongs where. But I stuck with the out of 10.5, 0 to 10 scale because I thought that was just, it was something different, I guess, than what everyone seems to do. But I like this scale, it makes more sense to me, so I'm going to stick by it, because who cares about this more than me? No one. I care about it. So a B- would be my last, like, fresh or positive review, and a C+ would kind of start my negative connotations of films. So, yeah. Bye. Hello? There's no one on the phone. See? You got baited.